I'd like to thank all of you for taking time out of your day to attend. We've only got about 25 minutes for this presentation, so I'm going to get rolling. Keep in mind, we're going to hold everything on mute. We will be answering questions at the end. So if you do have questions, hang on, we will get to them as soon as possible. I'm going to start this presentation by talking about the fact that you're here is probably because you're thinking about doing budgeting and forecasting. And odds are you're using Excel. Now, Excel is a very powerful tool. It's flexible. You can model anything you want with it. It's got really good calculations, a rich presentation layer, and has high user adoption. The problem is Excel isn't perfect. It's not a database. You've got a lot of manual steps that go along working with it. You've got no workflow, no audit trails, a lot of version control. You know, which of these spreadsheets is the most recent one, sort of thing. And it's error prone. In fact, 90% of all spreadsheets contain some form of error on it. Now, a lot of these are small, but how would you like to be the person at JP Morgan who did copy paste wrong that cost them $6 billion? That's probably very much a career limiting move there, right? So again, your errors in your spreadsheets probably aren't to this magnitude, but they do exist. So what is the solution? Well, the solution when you're doing budgeting and forecasting is to look at an application like TrueSky. And why TrueSky? Well, we're going to allow you to focus on the high value items that go along with doing budgeting and forecasting, rather than all that drudgery that pretty much sucks the life out of you when you're doing budgeting and forecasting. And we really help three main groups within your organization. The first group are contributors. Those are the people that are doing the frontline entry. And for them, we're going to reduce the time and effort it takes to do a budget cycle. When it comes to the finance group, who usually maintains the process and runs through everything, we're going to minimize your administrative overhead, and we're going to, at the end of the day, increase the quality of your numbers. And when it comes to decision makers, we're going to provide meaningful information to them, not just numbers. And that's going to help them reduce risk and avoid surprises. So what are some of our pillars, right? Well, within TrueSky, we really had three main pillars when we were developing it. First one of those is we wanted to continue to allow you to leverage Excel. Now, you might think this is a little strange considering I talked about how error prone earlier Excel was. Well, at TrueSky, we really believe that Excel is the best end user interface for doing budgeting and forecasting that is out there. The problem is it tends to break down in a multi-user environment. And as you get more complex, you get more business processing, you're doing budgeting and forecasting more often, it becomes very cumbersome and difficult to work with. But from an individual end user, it's the best tool possible, right? And why is that? Well, it's got rapid user adoption. You bring anyone in from outside, they know how to use Excel. It requires minimal training. It's got a huge depth and breadth of functionality. The last number I heard that over its 30-year life cycle, Microsoft has spent over $2 billion in R&D on that product. It's ease of use, it's got great flexibility, but the difference is we're going to add a ton of enhancements. They're going to get you in and out of budgeting faster and better. The second pillar was that we wanted to help enable the finance group to take total control of the budgeting and forecasting process themselves without having to rely on outside sources or IT resources as an example. So what are some of the things that we do? Well, one, we're going to centralize all of your budgeting and forecasting data into one place, into a centralized database. No more of all those interlinked worksheets that break and cause you nightmares. We're going to give you things like audit trails. We're going to give you not only application security, but data level security. So to determine who in your organization can see what pieces of information without having to worry about spreadsheets walking out the door. We're going to give you automatic and real-time merging of your data. That's one of the biggest headaches of using Excel within your organization. We're going to give you direct integration to multiple different data sources. We're going to help promote accountability of your numbers. And thanks to our build once design, you're going to be able to involve more and more people into your budgeting and forecasting process without adding additional overhead and work. Now, our final one is we wanted to help facilitate knowledge in your organization. And with that, well, thanks to TrueSky, you're going to be able to easily involve more people in the budgeting and forecasting process. You're going to be able to capture qualitative and quantitative information. You're going to be able to do some deep dive analytics. We're going to help increase your accuracy. And at the end of the day, you're going to get decision level information. So what are some of the things that you can do with TrueSky? Now, this is not everything. This is just a high level of some of the kinds of budgeting and forecasting and reporting things that you can do with TrueSky. It can be financial or operational type budgeting and forecasting, compensation planning, revenue forecasting, capital expenditure planning, project costing, project revenue, production planning, inventory, stock planning, and also use TrueSky for just structured data capture. When it comes to reporting and dashboarding, which is not really heavy what we're going to talk about today, you can do any kind of consolidated budget reporting. You can do formal reporting as well, such as income statements, balance sheet, cash flow statements, any kind of budget to actual variances. If you're doing stuff in compensation, FTE and headcount reports, dashboards and KPIs. These are all things that are possible with TrueSky. So with that, I'm going to stop showing slides because I know what you really want to see is get a feel for what the application looks like, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So up on the screen, you are seeing Excel, and I am going to show you from an end user interaction how TrueSky works. Home, insert, page layout, formulas. These are all the traditional tabs you're used to seeing in Excel. And then this is where we come in, TrueSky. First thing I'd like to point out, TrueSky supports multiple languages. So if you have operations, whether it be across Canada, across the US, across the world, whatever that case may be, we have you covered. And different people can be operating against the same data sets in the language of their choice. So in this example here, I have language packs installed for English, Spanish, and French. And again, not only do we deal with the differences in language, we also deal with the differences of how numbers are stored and presented in different countries. So in different countries, different people use, whether it be a comma or a space for the thousand separator, or a decimal for the thousand separator, or a period, excuse me. Or if when it comes to the decimal, are using a comma or a period. So again, there's a lot of different ways data is displayed, and we handle all that for you as well. But really what I want to start with is this little button that's called the Hub. The Hub is a central area where people go to access things within TrueSky. And I'm going to focus on these two tabs, assignments and reports. Assignments are input sheets. It's how you get data into the system. And under my annual budget cycle, I have to work on office expense and travel expense. And under reports, for my financial statements, I get access to 3 different financial statements. These 3 financial statements and these 2 input tasks are what I see when I log in. When somebody else logs in, they might only see 1 input cycle and or 1 input task and no reports at all. Everything we do in TrueSky dynamically renders itself to the individual based on what they're allowed to see and to work with. So again, we've got very tight security, and you can kind of get rapid user adoption because you're not training people to ignore a lot of other stuff. I'm going to focus on office expenses, a couple things that you start to get. And again, I can't go over in this shorter period of time, I can't talk about every one of our features, but we give you control over things like start and end date, so you can automatically lock people out from making changes. We also have a complete workflow approval engine built into TrueSky that allows you to route your numbers through various different levels of approval. So again, you can get more people involved in the process, have all those numbers roll up automatically, but with an approval path, tracking all the yeses and nos and the backs and forths and everything else. Now, first tab that just opened up is expenses, reminding people how to use the system. But what I want to focus on is this tab over here, which is called office expenses. Now, down the side, these are our filters, our slicers, our dimensions, whatever term you want to use. And again, depending on your backend ERP, you may call things differently. You know, these might be segments in your chart of accounts. These might be your analytical dimensions or what have you. In my example, I have a slicer for location. I have a slicer for department. I have a slicer for currency. These are my slicers for this presentation. Your slicers will be completely different. You don't have multiple locations, you don't need a slicer for location. If you're doing revenue forecasting, maybe you have a slicer for customer or product as an example. Now, when I want to work with a different location, I can click my little edit button here, and I will be presented with a list of the different locations that I have access to. Now, this list will also be controlled by security, but more important, when we tie in with your backend data source, whatever that data source may be, whether it be a Sage product or something else, we're going to update this list automatically. So you don't have to manually maintain multiple systems. You add a new department, a new location, a new account, a new customer, a new product, whatever the case may be, to the backend system, we will pick it up for you automatically. It's one of the ways that we help reduce your effort. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and retrieve data from my Seattle office for my corporate department. And again, currency here, you may not have multiple currencies, but we do support budgeting in multiple currencies. What the system's doing now is going out and grabbing data and bringing me back the most up-to-date data that we have in the database. Okay, so first thing I like to show, what's on rows, what's on columns, color shading, font control, completely up to you. I'm going to close my filter pane and zoom in here a little bit, so it's probably a little bit easier to see over these web meetings. Now, told you what you see on rows and columns is completely up to you. We also enforce security in the body of these documents. So if I don't get access to the company car, I won't see it on this list. But the person in the cube next to me might be able to see this based on their security settings. So I've created one template, rolled it out to multiple different people, and it's going to dynamically adjust to their individual usage. Now, I'm showing 12 months of budget and 12 months of actual and 12 months of variance. But you can have multiple prior years of actual, multiple prior years of budget, whatever you want to have up on a screen here, it's up to you. I'm budgeting monthly, but we support daily, weekly, quarterly, and yearly as our granularity levels for budgeting and forecasting. I'm also budgeting on a calendar year, but you could also budget on a fiscal year, and you have the ability to budget on a fiscal, report on a calendar, report on a calendar, budget on a fiscal, or vice versa within the system. So we give you a lot of flexibility from that. Now, when it comes to end users, they pick it up really quick because for them, they get to work with it just like it is in Excel. I can do direct type in like I'm used to doing in Excel. I can do copy paste. I can do click and drag. And if you look at the formula I'm typing here, this is a true Excel formula. I'm going to bake this on my actuals right here. So they don't have to learn any new syntax. And when I hit save, my numbers are immediately saved to the backend database where they're instantly available to any other user to use in real time. Again, as long as they've got security, no document check-in, check-out, no emailing of Excel workbooks, no linkages, no those interlinked formulas. Everything we do is in real time and centralized. But we're a lot more than just Excel, right? So again, we give you controls like people can't hit the wrong button there. People cannot change numbers unless you allow them to. So again, we lock down different areas, but we keep alive all the other Excel features and functionality that people might like to work with over the course of time. We've also added a lot of other, clicked in the wrong place. We've also added a lot of other enhancements. So some of those include complete audit trails. So anytime someone makes a change in TrueSky, we track what is the change and the date and time. So you've always got that accountability. No more, hey, I don't know where those numbers came from. You know exactly where they came from. We give you the ability to add thoughts and comments, notes, right? And instead of embedding these notes in Excel, like a lot of people do with that right mouse click and add comments, our notes are stored in the database and they are tied to the data and they travel with the data. So if I enter numbers into a budget 2 years from now in a budget to actual report or income statement, I can see these notes. Again, we allow you to add as many different notes as you want, as well as electronic attachments. So if you have a business case to back up your numbers or say a vendor quote in PDF, you can actually attach it here. No more of those shared drives where documents go missing. Where you have to hunt through 100 different documents to find the backup, detail. Everything is in one place. It just makes your analysis down the road that much easier. We give you a whole series of data tools. Now, I'm not going to go into all of these right now just because I don't have a huge amount of time to cover everything we do. But what these tools allow you to do is to do things like spreading. And you may hear some of these versions. So if I wanted to do $12,000 spread evenly over these cells, I can do that at the touch of a button. But you can also put in things like seasonality. So if I wanted to base my numbers this year on last year's trending, I could actually do that right within TrueSky without having to do any of additional level of work. Or if I wanted to, I could do bulk decreases or changes. Like this example here, I'm going to do 25% decrease right here, or maybe I want to do these bulk increases right now. So again, the goal of these tools is to allow your people to get in and out of the system quicker without any additional level of work, but to hopefully give you more accurate numbers, especially if you're going to use this to get to a cash flow projection down the road. And again, there's more that we do. I know I'm going fast. We've just got a lot to cover in a very small period of time. Other things that we're big in doing, giving you the ability to do roll-ups of your data. So add on the fly additional backup detail into the budget and the forecast. Again, centralizing all of your information. Now, there's other things that we do, including data alerts, data validations, roles, and additional kind of tools and configurations. But I wanted to give you some flavor. We also support doing things like driver-based budgeting. So if I want to budget for head counts, units, quantities, and so forth, and you can always graphically display all of your data while you're doing budgets as well. But let's make a little bit of a switch here in gears as to I'm doing the budget. Let's talk a little bit about analytics, because when I'm doing budgeting and forecasting, I really want to see what's the backup of that. How did I get to this number? So $1.2 million that I spent last year. How did I spend that money? Well, instead of me having to call up the accounting and finance group and ask them to run a report out of the system and maybe take time out of their day and there's a delay and all of that, how about I do my own real-time drill downs back to source data? So I'm going to go up here and go to payables and with details. And what it does is make a real-time call back into the host system. And in this example, bringing me back all the AP and purchase order transactions that we have in the system. Now, again, there's security around this. You get to control what data is exposed to your people. But once they've got this, now they can do their own self-service analytics. So I'm going to start scrolling, looking at my numbers. What did I spend? I'm going to sort it lowest to highest. Or maybe I want to sort it highest to lowest. Or you know what? Maybe I want to say just what was my top 10 items that I purchased and how much did that come to, right? Well, that's one level of analytics, right? I say I spent about 25 grand was my top 10 purchases, all right? So now I've got that figured out. But let me clear that out. Maybe you want to do another view here. Well, I'm going to go up here. I'm going to pull up account name right here. And this is going to give me account name. Now I'm seeing it grouped by account. So I'm spending money in company cars, company medias. I'm going to pull in the vendor here as well. Now let's look at supply software. I'm going to expand this out. And I spent money with Adobe CamSoft Mobile Warehouse. And then, oh, there's a tablet purchase that got booked to my software account. So it got booked to the wrong GL account. Or, hey, that wasn't my purchase. That should have gone to somebody else's department, right? So what we've given is all of your people all the information they need at their fingertips. So if they want to do budgeting or they want to analyze the reports at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, they've got everything they need. There's no excuse for them not to have what they want. And again, this can all be exported out and they can use it as self-service reporting as well. So with TrueSky, you get the ability to manage budgeting and forecast and that kind of deep dive analytics. Now I'm going to show you a couple other things, and then I'll open it up for any kind of questions that you have. But one of the other things that we do is we are also a complete reporting tool. So any data that you have in TrueSky, you can report upon, including doing presentation quality reports, like an income statement that I have up on screen here. And again, you get to configure how this looks and feels. And again, you obviously have the ability to print this or to email it out to somebody else if you need to, like a board of directors or your bank or whatever else. But what are some of the things I can do? Now you can control how many prior years of actuals and budgets and so forth. But you can see down here, we're also doing things like calculating metrics, gross sales, EBITDA percentages, and so forth, growth rates. But now if I expand out this way, you can see, let me zoom in a little bit here so you can see the numbers right there, that not only am I bringing in actuals for the first part of the year, I can also combine that with budget to get to where your projection is going to be. So again, month over month, you can actually automatically have the system add one more month of actual and one less month of budget. So you always know where you're going to end up. I can also drill down this way. I can now see at this, I'll expand out to the level, but I can, group it, consulting expenses, admin expenses, get all the way down to the GL account. And I can do those exact same drill downs that I just showed you earlier from my reports as well. So whether it be in a reporting environment or a budgeting environment, people can drill all the way back down to that source detail, get all the information they need. I can also add notes to my actuals if I want to, so I can explain variances so other people know exactly why we didn't hit our targets or what have you. And I can also see audit trails over the course of time from this screen as well. The final thing that you can do with TrueSky is also dashboards. So this is an example of a financial dashboard, and it's not just a static dashboard that comes up with some numbers. We give you the ability to actually do some what if analysis. So let's say I wanted to play with my numbers. So I've got revenue, compensation, expenses, and what my net income is going to be, and I'm showing budget and what if. But let's say what if we can increase revenue by 30%, but that can't go into effect until August. What's the effect on our net income? And let's say, okay, we're going to have to do a compensation increase of 10% at the start of the year. How does that affect things? But you know what? We know we can cut expenses by 25%, but that can't start until March. And now what I've got is the ability on screen to not just see a dashboard, but to also do what if different types of scenarios with it in order to see where I'm at. So I'm going to do a couple wrap-up slides. That kind of gives you a really quick overview of TrueSky and what we can do. Remember, we do any kind of budgeting, planning, and forecasting you think of, reporting, and deep dive analytics. With TrueSky, you're going to get all the strengths of Excel. You're going to get all the control that you don't have today, and that's ultimately going to give you an enterprise level solution that's going to help you have one version of the truth, get all that centralized control, give you not just data, but actionable information that's going to reduce risks and avoid all of your surprises. And at the end of the day, you're going to benefit from the power of Excel while losing completely that painful merge process. You're going to get reduced admin costs, and you're not going to have to juggle spreadsheets and those bad links any longer. You're going to get direct integration to your source data, and you're not going to have to worry about manual manipulation of that data and all the errors that can go along with it. And at the end of the day, you're going to get meaningful information, and you're going to avoid all those unwanted surprises. So we got about 5 minutes left, so I want to leave time for questions. So in the GoToWebinar interface, there's a place where you can ask questions from. So go ahead and type them in there right now, and we'll do that. While you're doing that, if you wanted to get a little bit more information, contact BAASS. And again, if you want a little bit more about our website, see some more demos, we've got some more videos, you can go out to our website here. But traditionally what we would do is work with you guys in BAASS to do a demo. Talk a little bit more about your specific needs, ultimately come up with a scope, and then you guys would get a proposal for doing a deployment of TrueSky. So with that, before you have to drop off, I know you got a lot of different sessions. I do want to thank you again for taking time out of your day to watch this presentation. I hope I piqued your interest. I know I'm talking 8,000 miles a minute, but thank you for your time, and I will handle any questions that you might have now.
Thank you so much, Alan, for that. We do have a few questions that have come in. One of the first questions I see here is, does TrueSky work with other publishers, or is it just with Sage?
We can integrate with any data source that we can get our grubby little fingers into, okay, as I call it, right? So as long as we can make an electronic call, we can pull data in, whether that be direct to database, web services, and we also have the ability to bring in data from flat file. Like an Excel file or a CSV, which is what we often have to do with companies like ADP or Ceridian or payroll providers that do hosted payroll that will not let you have direct access. So yeah, we're not just Sage. We can tie in with any little data source that we can get into.
Another question that we have is, what is the licensing model?
All right, we've tried to keep the licensing model very simple for you guys. So you don't have to really think about, are we doing, how many transactions are we doing, or what kind of process are we doing? We don't care about all that, or what kind of data sources. It really comes down to user licenses. And there's one of 3 user licenses you get. At the lowest level, it's a reporting only user license. And these are people that can only run reports. They can't do data input. They can't be part of the approval process, but they just consume data. A step up from that is an approval and reporting user license. That's the kind of person, maybe it's an executive that you know they're never going to actually ever do data input, but they want to be able to review the numbers. They want to give the thumbs up or the thumbs down, the yes or the no, add commentary, but they're, and maybe run reports, but they're not going to do input. And then the most inclusive license is a full use license, which allows people to do data input, allows people to be part of the approval process and run reports. Again, you get those different license licenses, you assign those to different users, and then within them, there's also data level security as to what they can see and work with within the constraints of what their user license type works with. So I hope that answers that question. As a follow-up, we're more than happy to talk to you about the kind of processes you're doing, who are your users, and we can help you figure out what are the best user license types for those individual users.
Okay, I have another one. Can TrueSky be deployed in the cloud?
Yes, so TrueSky has 2 different types of deployment methods. You can deploy what we call on-premise. So that would be, if you've got a server in the back closet still in your office or your own server room, great, you can deploy there. Or you can deploy on-premise in a hosted environment that you control. Maybe you're using an outside hosting provider. So that's one option. We call that on-premise either way. We also have a cloud offering, TrueSky Online, which is a complete cloud offering. You can still tie into different data sources the same way that I talked about earlier. It's just that, TrueSky is providing the infrastructure and the cloud solution for you. The solution itself is identical. You're not giving up one or the other. It really depends on how you like to deploy applications.
I did have one other question. Attendee had asked, why can I not see TrueSky in my Excel toolbar? But they did indicate that they do not currently have the TrueSky module.
Okay, so if Am I reading? Does that sound like they currently own TrueSky, but they're not seeing it in their Excel add-on? Is that how I'm reading that?
It's possible, yes.
Okay, so if that's the answer, that your company, and I don't know who you are, you can always follow up and I can tell for sure, or I can look it up. So if you are a current TrueSky user, thank you, first of all. But if you're not seeing TrueSky in your add-in, then either one of two things is going on. A, you haven't installed the add-in because there is a little bit of an install that goes along with it. Or B, you as an end user has not been granted access to TrueSky. So even if you installed TrueSky, if an administrator who controls users and stuff within TrueSky has not added you as a user and set your security, you would not be seeing the TrueSky add-in. So it could be one of those two items there if you're a current TrueSky user. If you're not, then all you got to do is buy TrueSky, and then we can get you that added.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I did indicate that if you or any of the other attendees have any questions that we did not get to, we will be following up with you, reaching back out to Alan as well. So I'd like to take a moment to say thank you very much, Alan, for presenting today. We will be sorry.
I was gonna say, we also have a session later on about compensation planning as well.
Yes. We're going to be taking a short break, restarting back at 1:05. We will be on track 2, having solving Excel hell and data house divided with advanced analytics by data self. And if you're looking for information about Sage Enterprise Intelligence, there is a part 2 happening on track 1. So thank you so much. And we'll just take a little pause here.
Thank you all.